My multimedia presentation is on the history and structure of the Russian government from a comparative perspective. Russia is the largest country in the world, spanning Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. The latest population estimates are at 146 million. Russia has a diverse population with over 190 ethnic groups, but is predominantly made up of ethnic Russians. Some key cultural features of Russia include rich heritage in literature, ballet, classical music, and visual arts. Russia has a strong sense of national pride and resilience rooted in historical challenges. Got ahead of myself there. Russia is a resource-driven economy. They are major global exporters of oil, natural gas, and minerals. Some significant economic industries are energy, agriculture, technology, and defense. So, the historical background of Russia, I am starting my timeline in the Tsarist era, which is about 1547 to 1917. During this time, there was an autocratic monarchy in place. Peter the Great is widely considered to have initiated the process of westernization in Russia. He himself was an absolute monarch. The westernization in Russia significantly changed its political, social, and military systems, aligning them more closely to Western European models. Catherine the Great was crowned empress in 1762. She continued the process of westernization. So the Soviet Union was around from 1917 to 1991. Following the Russian Revolution of 1917, the Bolshevik Party led by Vladimir Lenin seized power, leading to the establishment of the Soviet Union. The monarchy in Russia was abolished and became a communist state. Human and political rights were violated and limited. U.S. containment, economic stagnation, and overextension of the military led to Soviet Union collapse. The collapse and the long-lasting effects of the Cold War impacted Russia socially and economically. Post-Soviet Russia / the Russian Federation, from 1991 to the present day, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation became the successor state. The current government systems of Russia The current government system of Russia is formerly known as a federal semi-presidential republic. The visuals that I provided here, the first one is of Peter the Great. The second is Soviet Union propaganda that was circulating at the time. And the third is a photo of Putin and Mishustin, the current prime minister. So the general structure of the Russian Federation consists of a executive branch and a legislative and judicial branch. The executive branch consists of the president and the prime minister. Like I said before, Russia is officially known as a federal semi-presidential constitutional republic with regular elections and a constitution. But in practice, Putin holds strong centralized power. He has acted as a dictator since he has been in power since 2012. The government functions as an authoritarian regime, and Putin holds power like a dictator. So, the current structure of the executive branch consists of the prime minister and the president. The prime minister is the head of the government, and they implement domestic and foreign policy as well as economic affairs. Overall, they are less powerful than the president. Mikhail Mishustin is the current prime minister of Russia. S- Um, In this position, this person is doing a lot of the paperwork for the president. The president is the head of the state. They are the most powerful figure in the Russian government. While elections exist, checks and balances are non-existent. And Putin has been the president since 2012. Term limits were formerly in place, but Putin has manipulated them to stay in power time and time again. As I said before, uh, Vladimir Putin is known as a president in a federal semi-presidential republic, but he acts much more as a dictator. So the legislative branch is made up of the State Duma and the Federation Council. The State Duma, or the lower house, has 450 members. They have term limits of 5 years. These people are half elected through party list proportional representation and half through single member districts. Voters cast their ballots for a party and not for a representative. The main powers of the State Duma include passing laws and creating a national budget, approving the prime minister, but the president can bypass their rejections, initiate legislation and hold debates. While they have these formal powers, they rarely oppose the president due to the political pressure and the dominance of the pro-Putin party in Russia. The Federation Council, or the upper house, is made up of 170 members, two from each of Russia's 85 federal subjects. One of them is appointed by the regional legislature, and one is appointed by the regional governor, which is often aligned with the Kremlin. The term lengths for these positions depend on the regional appointment, but there is no fixed term lengths. The main powers of the Federation Council include approving laws passed by the State Duma, ratifying international treaties, approving judicial and high-level executive appointments. I am going to repeat that these are formal powers, and the reality is they typically rubber stamp presidential decisions without any debate. The judicial branch is made up of two main courts, the constitutional courts and the Supreme Court. The constitutional court handle constitutional issues, and the Supreme Court handles general and economic disputes. There, there are separate constitutional courts for each issue, but they can be compared to the United States Supreme Court, as they are the highest courts in the country. Judges are nominated by the president and approved by the Federation Council, which is similar to the process in the United States. Constitutional Court judges' term length ends at age 70, so they do not have lifetime tenure. It is important to note that presidential elections are held, but only certain candidates, those who do not pose a substantial threat, um, are even permitted to run against Putin. The Kremlin meticulously manages the electoral process, so they often sideline opposition through imprisonment, disqualification, or coercion into exile. The Russian government controls and censors media in a way that satisfies Putin's narrative. Dissent of information is discouraged. The likelihood of an opposing candidate gaining support and winning is very low. Even if that was the case, the systematic manipulation would prevent a fair victory. So for the comparative analysis, I started by pointing out that legislative checks on the executive branch are non-existent in Russia, unlike in the United States. While Russia formally has three branches of government, President Putin makes the final decision. The UK is a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary system. They follow a common law system with a strong judiciary. China operates under a single party system led by the Communist Party. Political opposition is not permitted, and the CCP controls election. The judiciary is subordinate to the CCP, and the legal system lacks independence. The government strictly controls media. The United States has a capitalist economy with limited government intervention. The UK has a market-based economy with social welfare elements. The government regulates industries but allows private enterprise to flourish. China is a socialist market economy with heavy state intervention, where the government controls industries. Russia shares similarities with China's centralized government. It contrasts sharply with the democratic structures of the United States and the UK. So, the Russian invasion of Ukraine began on February 24th, 2022. The roots of the conflict go back much further. Since gaining independence in 1991, the Soviet of the Soviet Union, Russia and Ukraine have had territorial disputes. Putin has expressed that he views Ukraine as historically and culturally tied to Russia. At the beginning of the invasion, Ukraine resisted far more effectively than Russia anticipated. If we look at this visual here, we can see that this was at the start of the invasion, where Russia is no longer occupying the northern area, but it gives a good look at what was happening at the time. Western nations have imposed severe sanctions on Russia. Military aid from the West has helped Ukraine regain some territory. Russia and Ukraine are both at the point where they are forcing enlistment. The war is still ongoing with massive losses on both sides. In conclusion, the Soviet history, the government style, and the geographic size make Russia such a unique country. Russian government evolved from autocratic czar's rule to Soviet communism, and finally its current federal semi-presidential system. In practice, Putin holds strong centralized control over the government where he has near absolute influence. The USSR deeply shaped Russia's political culture, emphasizing state control and, in turn, centralized power. During the 1990s, major political reform began to formally transition Russia towards a form of democracy, but the key word is formally. Understanding Russia's government history can help us grasp its current political dynamics and its global behaviors.